In our effort to highlight Black community leadership, the Dominique Hoskins Black History Museum and Learning Center is pleased to share this oral history interview conducted in July 2025 featuring Nancy Tyler Bruin, a typist who worked alongside Thurgood Marshall. In this interview, we discuss segregation in schools, the importance of education, and Mrs. Bruin's time working with Thurgood Marshall. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Like, what did you do for work? Anything like that you would like to share?
Well, I was raised in Kansas. For work, we had limited jobs that we could go to. Is either daycare or taking care of somebody's kids or either in the field of typing or something of that sort. But as far as higher education, it was very limited. Very few were able to go to college or high school.
You got to work with Thurgood Marshall. What was that like?
Thurgood Marshall was, of course, involved with Brown versus Board of Education. And Linda Brown was a recipient of the Brown versus Board of Education. We all went to the same church with St. John AME Church in Topeka, Kansas. Thurgood Marshall came with some of the attorneys in Topeka, and that was followed through with various meetings with local attorney and people coming from out of town and so forth.
For folks who don't know what Brown versus Board of Education was or who Thurgood Marshall was, how would you explain it to them?
Thurgood Marshall was a very well-known attorney and instrumental in setting up the parameters for the integration of school in Kansas, which was very successful, which took a lot of homework, a lot of thoughtfulness and meeting with folks. Meetings ran over for 2 or 3 days, and Thurgood Marshall was right there on the spot helping everybody through the whole process.
Can you talk about how you were involved with the work of Thurgood Marshall, how you got to interact with him?
My being skilled in typing and so forth, I was there to take the notes at their meetings, which was sometimes all-night sessions, just to be there for the input and the blueprint of setting things up for the decision that was going to be made.
What are some of the things that you remember from those meetings and being at that room?
I don't remember much about that, but like I say, they're all-night sessions sometimes, and it was just a lot of legalese work that had to be done and language that mainly the attorneys would understand, but we had to translate and put it into hard copy.
How do you think the work that Thurgood Marshall and the other members of the board were doing, how do you think the community felt or experienced those decisions that were being made?
They were acceptable. Many of the churches got involved and would come and put input to it. And the districts bringing Linda, who is the key person involved, from one side of town to another. She had traveled 8 buses to get to an all-black school and it passed all of the Caucasian schools. And at some point in time, she was a young 5-year-old, could not travel to city buses by herself, so she was accompanied by her father, who was also associate pastor of the church that we all belong to.
Do you remember the outcome of the case and what happened from there?
Brown versus Board was resolved. People did not accept it readily, but in due time, it was against the law to have segregated schools, but not accepted at first. But because of police escorts and sheriff escorts, they were able to go to school with somebody accompanying them.
Looking back on getting to be in that room where the big decisions were being made about integration of schools and inclusion in schools, how has being in that space shaped your views on social justice and the importance of education?
To me, that's primary. Education is primary. It shaped my views in that if you have it, education, as long as you put it to good use, it will be acceptable.
What sort of changes did you see in your community in terms of inclusion and social justice after this decision was made and the schools were successfully integrated?
It wasn't successful immediately, but after a while, people began to wonder why. You go to the department store, we could not try on hats. You were followed around in the store, particularly stores that were high-end stores. And the point that I really felt more comfortable with is after a period of time, people, they didn't question you. They just accepted you as a person, and you were able to go in and your money was just as good as my money. As far as eating places, things opened up because at one time you had to pay first before you got your food. That kind of dissipated and things just kind of flowed a little bit better. We're here. What were they going to do with us?
How did that segregation impact you when you were living through it?
Well, as I said, as a young kid, I was brought up with segregation. So I knew where I could go and where I couldn't go. And I didn't challenge. We did not have the right to challenge them. I was mentioning in the car, the drinking bounds. They're right next to one another. This one said colored only, and this one said white only. But they came from the same pipe. You go to the trailways of the Greyhound bus station, it was the same thing. The restrooms were completely different. All that dissipated. The grocery stores, they changed their method about payment. They used to run bills and so forth. They were just running account for blacks because a lot of times the men were out of work. They needed food and they just couldn't buy it. So they would give you a credit. They found out, okay, they can do jobs like anybody else and get paid and things like that. But like I said, we knew where we could go and we didn't challenge it because we didn't want to have altercations and so forth. Even in the high school, which was at that time one high school, which was called Topeka High School. And they said all of the Afro-Americans had to be on the second floor. We couldn't be on the first. We couldn't be on the third. That meant we were in the middle. So if you had classes upstairs, you always had to pass by the second floor. That might have been an advantage to us, but we were limited where we could have our lockers and what we could do. Surprising the things they could limit you on doing. Even trying on shoes, going to the shoe store, you just had to look and say, oh, you wear a size 6. So you couldn't try it on, but they didn't want us to interact with the shoes and clothing, hats, whatever. We knew just how far to go, and we didn't challenge it.
For young people who are listening to your story in this video, what do you want them to know about your story or Brown versus Board of Education or about Thurgood Marshall? What do you think is something important for them to take away from this conversation that we're having right now?
The main thing is education. If you educate yourself and go along with the program within the parameters of the law or whatever situation you might be in, things will work out. It's just reaching for higher goals and having confidence in yourself. Expand yourself, look for new avenues, pick up different languages, just be integrated in things of that sort.
Is there anything else that you want to share about your story before we wrap up?
As I keep saying, education is primary. Even the little talks that come along, any kind of little stories you could read to them or whatever education you could give them, it's important. It'll stick some kind of way.